Welcome to the Tesla Power Podcast, the unofficial Tesla energy community covering solar panels, solar roof, and Powerwall for your home. I'm Aaron Brady. Today, let's talk about conversion loss from self-powered versus backup only. Let's talk about Tesla's California virtual power plant. Let's talk about the Powerwall 2 and its pros and cons. And lastly, let's revisit some comments from Jack Rickard, National Treasure. Let's do it. So let's do what we always do. Let's start the pod with a comment. And if you have a burning question, leave a comment below. You can call 203-816-5150 or you can email teslapowerpodcast@gmail.com. Today, Bill Gilbrook is my video comment buddy. Thank you for inputting. Honestly, it makes this way more fun and a lot less like talking to myself in an empty room. Bill comments, quote, Tesla Power Podcast. Hope you'll be able to run July spreadsheet numbers for usage, generation, deficit, grid usage, and conversion loss with percentage now that you've switched from self-powered mode to 100% backup mode. Thank you. And for you, Bill, of course, here's a nice look-see at the June numbers to remind us all of the horrors. So, got the app up here. We're filtering the numbers for, going to, Powerwall. We're filtering for June. You can see that I'm able to look at several different categories. So we can look at the home on its own, solar, battery, and grid. The section for solar, it shows three important values below the graph. So if you scroll up, you can see the energy destinations are listed. So that's solar to the home, solar to the battery, and then solar to the grid. And just like the solar selection, the grid section includes two important values. So if we scroll to the top, we can see electricity taken from the grid, and if you scroll below, you can see electricity sent to the grid. Now, we need to use that to compare with the solar percentage sent to the grid. All of this is going to help us check our work. So let's bring up that spreadsheet. You will see that I've got the spreadsheet full screen here. You can see I've added a tab for efficiency loss down here. That's where we're at. And I'll probably need to do a little bit of zooming in here. Let's go 200, right? Is that too much? Too much is not enough. There's a spot in Times Square that used to say that. It's like an arcade or something. But you'll see I've got May included. So May, June, July, and then August. We'll fill in when we get there. I had been calling this tab conversion loss, but I want to use the same term that big kids are using. So I've changed it over to efficiency loss. In this tab, you can see several columns. So of course, column C, we have home usage, D, total solar, solar to home, solar to battery, and solar to grid. So I've broken out each of those different tabs to show the data that's in there. And then from J on, we can watch each step. So we can watch that math happen. So I do need to point out, though, that I hadn't switched from self-powered to backup only until last week. So we're not going to see this snap to a super efficient, low efficiency loss number just yet. We do expect to see a downward trend, like Bill had pointed out in his comment. So back to the full Megillah. We start with the total solar, and we will subtract. Oh, of course, I have a beach ball. All right, there we go. So I can scroll over to column J, and that way we can start with the solar, the total solar, and subtract what we send to the grid. And that leaves us with solar we either use immediately in the house or we store in the battery. we'll take that solar and we will subtract it from the total home usage. That'll give us the amount of electricity we'll need to pull from the grid if we experience no efficiency loss in that electricity we're using locally or storing in the battery. Now you can see that we kept 937, but we still needed to use, well, the difference between our total usage and the solar we kept is 937, but we had to pull in slightly more than that from the grid. So that belies some inefficiency. So let's look at that ratio. So we use that ratio to show our efficiency loss, and you can see that the efficiency loss is ever so slightly down, only down about 1.3%. So we're not seeing anything impressive yet. Now that we're not using electricity from the battery, we're converting only once from DC coming from solar to AC going out to the grid. So we expect to see only about a 3% efficiency loss, more or less. Let's look at the solar inverter data sheet. And here we go. We've got peak efficiency and CEC efficiency. So peak efficiency is what they calculate to be, the best possible efficiency. Did I get the right thing? No. There we go. So there's the efficiencies. Showing basically 98.0%, 98.4% at some slightly higher voltages. But the CEC, which I had to look up, is the California Energy Commission. Even though Tesla has rated their efficiency at 98%, you can see that the CEC has independently rated it slightly lower, about 97%. So, you can see here that I'm zoomed in, and I have the link to the doc in the description below. If you want to, go root around and get more detail, you're welcome to do that on your own. Right, back to the document. But they claim, of course, a little bit better than 97%. We can see I'm getting a little less than that in each conversion. I'll have more on all of this when we have a full month of data to compare. Comparing June to August will be a much better comparison than June to July, especially since we're not done with the month. But, straight up, we might have to wait a whole year to get apples to apples, since June is a much higher production month, longer days and stuff. So, I don't know. Let's move on to news for now. I had first heard this from Rob Maurer on Tesla Daily, but I needed a better visual for this insert, so we're going to go with Electrek. The virtual power plant beta that I covered last episode is for charity only. Boo! Or yay! Here's a little snippet from the article. If we scroll down, as of launch, the Tesla virtual power plant is a public good program to support the California grid, and there's no compensation for Tesla or customers. While customer compensation for this program is a possibility in the future, in the meantime, customers are encouraged to participate in the program and mobilize the excess capacity of their Powerwall systems, end quote. So I'm down with doing some good, especially if it's not much of an inconvenience. It wasn't what I was expecting, of course, and I'd assert that it's likely once this comes out of beta, the deal will change, just as they say in the description. So, I really have to wonder, though, won't Tesla be making some money during this beta? I know they say they're not going to, but I don't know. That would make it charity for both the state of California and for Tesla. I don't know. What I would say is that the scale of electricity supplier would require approval from the regulator. That's almost a certainty. So maybe the point here is that this isn't approved as a utility, so they can't charge for the grid service it's going to perform. But I thought they would have to coordinate in some way, so I don't know. I'm a little bit confused by that. But ultimately, it probably needs to be done, regardless of the regulatory status. It's clear this year, at this point anyway, that the virtual power plant is the future of electricity providing, and it's clear that the grid in California is in dire need of some assistance. So, maybe, if providing this service is not approved to make money doing it, it might be a good political move, to further their end of becoming a virtual power plant. Plus it's the right thing to do. Kudos to Tesla for doing the right thing, and kudos to those who are kind-hearted and decide to participate. I mean, straight up, we need the incentives to be put right here. We can't be paying the utility to offer crap service and then at the same time rely on, I don't know, the benevolence of Tesla and its customers to carry the day when things go sideways. So let's look for good news that the Tesla VPP is working, and let's hasten that day when it can be monetized to the benefit of the entire state. Next, let's talk to the power guys, the car guys. This is an article from hotcars.com. Oddly, this is for a review on the Powerwall 2, not a car. No, as far as I can tell anyway. Of course, because I have a couple of Powerwall 2s that I've just sidelined for bad behavior, what do we think we're going to focus on here? So let's take a look. Basically, this is the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Just take it over. Booyah. The good, thermal management. And you can see in their headlines, it's the basis of most of the advantages that they break out. So charging in freezing temperatures, thermal management. 10-year warranty, thermal management. Tesla Powerwall has a liquid cooling system. Awesome. So what's the bad? Well, the bad is the price. Now, this is actually good by comparison. The other options are more expensive with less capacity. So, I don't know. Let's talk about the ugly. You can't get one. At least not without solar. So, I'd say they're quite complimentary all in with this article. Do they get into anything particularly helpful? Not really. It's a nice overview if you want to know more about how these systems used to work. Of course, it's of no use to you if you want to know about a system you would order today. Today, they're shipping the Powerwall Plus, which is a DC coupled battery stacked with an AC inverter and has little to do with the pros or the cons they list here. The one thing they did get right, thermal management. This is perhaps the most important feature. As Tesla learned with their cars over the last 10 years, it improves not only the longevity of the battery, but the daily performance of the system overall. Now, it's not the most helpful article. I was really looking for more detail on efficiency and maybe even a comparison to the Powerwall Plus, but no dice from the car guys, unfortunately. And that's the news for now. I want to revisit some classic Jack Rickard and talk about his insights and the future of home solar and home storage. This guy is a genius and a dick. As in Detective, come on now. He did have some strongly held beliefs, but they weren't precious. They were well informed. I mean, he didn't suffer much for fools and had a great way of cutting the crap and getting to the truth of the matter, but one of his views that was notable to me anyway was that global warming has nothing to do with carbon dioxide. Let's view a clip.
Anyway, I'm very excited about solar energy. And one of the biggest struggles I have talking to you about it is that you already know all about it, and most particularly global warming. But I don't care about global warming. I don't view it the way you do. I don't view it the way your opponents do. And I am left out of the conversation somewhat disabled, mostly by you. But suffice it to say, you can't make me care about it because none of it's real. And it's not in my task list to persuade you of any of that. But we do share an interest in electric vehicles and solar power and driving on sunshine. That is an accident. I'm not one of you. I don't want to save the planet. I think it's actually the loveliest planet in the universe and God's creation, and I am commanded to spend my time here on this earth in what little way I can, assisting to its perfection, and saving it from global warming isn't on the list. However, solar is. For 25,000 years, mankind has sought to improve their lot and increase their wealth and their ability to feed themselves by manipulating energy, starting with firewood. And we burn those carbohydrates to cook our food and to stay warm. And that was the beginning. If you rearrange that just a little bit by putting it in the ground for 1 million years, now you get a hydrocarbon, coal, oil, natural gas, and we can burn those. But the highest order of our achievement has been the development of electricity. But it's a really ugly process of burning a hydrocarbon to heat water, to make steam, to turn a turbine. And the turbine turns an alternator, and the alternator produces electricity. This reduces our problem of transporting fuel because you can transport it instantly and it weighs nothing. So all in all, it's a magical epoch based on electricity, and it's only 150 years old at most. But there's a bypass. We take the sun, you can keep the water, and we're going to convert it directly into electricity, eliminating the transport of the fuel, the burning of the fuel, the heating of the water, the turning of the turbine, which in turn turns the alternator, and then all the transportation. We can put photoelectric cells directly on the roof of where we need to use the electricity, and we can convert sunlight to electricity directly. But you know what? They published a thing they publish every year, actually, called the Estimated U.S. Energy Consumption in 2019. 100.2 quads. Same Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Out of all energy sources, solar is 1.04%. It's barely detectable with test instruments that it exists. On the right side of the page, you'll see energy surfaces at 32.7 and rejected energy at 67.5. We did not reject this energy because we don't love it. When they say rejected energy, they're talking about wasted energy that is given off in all the processes to produce and use this energy as heat. You can see from this diagram that 2/3 of our energy is wasted as heat. If you're worried about global warming, you don't need to invent a CO2 fantasy. How about just the heat you give off in all these activities, from the tree to the turning wheel, or the air conditioning that you use? It's a huge amount of wasted energy. In fact, you're wasting most of it. No, you're not wasting most of it. You're wasting 2/3 of it giving off heat. And that is a wasteful and crude and inelegant use of energy. It would be a good mission for my life, and I would suggest for yours, to change that from 2/3 wasted and 1/3 used to 1/3 wasted and 2/3 used. And in fact, if we could get the world to be 90% energy efficient, we would be that much wealthier. You see, energy is our base wealth, and money and houses and cars and clothes and all that are proxies, one-off proxies for our ability to manipulate energy. And right now, as of 2019, we're doing a piss poor job of it.
Loved that guy. National treasure. Now, I've often thought about our effect on the polar ice cap specifically, not in terms of indirect global warming, but in terms of like the physical icebreakers that are actually chopping up the ice in the North Pole at scale. I mean, put a couple of hundred of those things up there, and what effect do you think they might be able to have over a century of busting up the North Pole's ice sheets? It's not going to be zero, right? What about that energy chart he shows? You know, if we're using more energy than ever and 2/3 of it is lost to heat, don't you think that the scale's enough to warm the planet? I don't know. I mean, it makes me think of like a beehive fighting an infection of mites. The bees, they get wiggly until the temperature of the hive rises above the temp the mites can survive at. The way we fight infections with fever, right? All of our movement, all of our industry, all of our activity, and the resulting heat pollution might be doing something similar. It's not that, carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide or any of the other nasty gases coming out of our vehicles and industrial processes are innocuous at scale. I'm just saying it's not only about emissions, right? What about the pavement, asphalt roofs, air conditioners, tree clearing, and the buildings we replace them with? So, I don't know. We're getting to such a scale that we're warming things up completely aside from any greenhouse effects. All we need to consider is the amount of heat we generate and displace and absorb into our infrastructure. It's worth considering, those inputs in in addition to what greenhouse gases do. But as he says, he doesn't care so much about the wasted heat either. He cares about elegance and wealth and independence. So generate your own power, use your own power. If we can use energy more efficiently, then we don't need to use as much of it in the first place, which in turn makes each of us more independent. And if we can also generate more efficiently, then energy, the measure of wealth, will be more distributed. These are noble pursuits. Let's check out another clip.
This past month, Lawrence Livermore Laboratories has introduced or published a paper on a multi-layer, multi-junction photocell, slightly north of 47% efficiency. Our most efficient commercial cells now are about 22.5% efficiency. In their paper, they alluded to a ready and imminent path to exceed 50% efficiency using this technique. And this is not the end of the road, guys. The quest for efficiency in photovoltaics is ongoing. Morrison, Colorado. So I'm not new to solar, but I recognize.
I see the other one just started playing. There we go. So photovoltaics at nearly 50% efficiency would be pretty amazing. I mean, that's twice as efficient as current panels. So you get 700 watts from a panel of comparable size. So our current 13.5 kilowatt system could be comprised of less than 20 panels. I mean, that would have taken nearly 40 panels with today's tech. The point, though, is that the price will come down as the efficiency goes up. We're looking at very prosperous days ahead as energy, again, the base layer of wealth, becomes more attainable and more distributed. But this isn't enough. We need the storage to go with it. Another clip.
Your all dreams of running your house on a 5 kilowatt inverter with 10 kilowatt hours of storage. I'm sorry. I went through this at age 5. We got a little electric motor out of a little toy car and built a go-kart with this little motor and a D-cell. It just wasn't big enough. What a disappointment. In the future, you're going to need 100 or so kilowatt hours of storage and 30 or 40 kilowatt of power. We know this here today because we've got 2 Model 3s charging in the afternoon and we drive on sunshine. But it takes a lot of solar and it takes a lot of battery. And so we're kind of in touch with things on a larger scale, and that's where you're going to wind up. Fortunately, as Elon makes millions of Model 3 and Model Y cars, the price and availability of the batteries will go down. And fortunately, the solar panels themselves will become better and more efficient and less expensive over time. Now, one of the issues with the Lawrence Livermore development, or with, you may have heard of the Perscovite cells, is their new technologies, and it's very difficult for them to compete with the economies of scale that the old panels get. But that either means you get the 45 or 50% panel at a high price, or as they come on and start to scale up, you get the 22% for $25 a panel. Either way, the price goes down. More electric cars, more batteries. And so, in 5 years, you won't be paying any more for the 75 kilowatt battery and the 30 kilowatt inverter than you are today for the 5 kilowatt inverter and the 10 kilowatt hour battery. Things happen with economies of scale.
I've been looking for that clip since Tesla first came to my house to survey for the solar glass roof. I was chatting with Cliff, the electrician, about the amount of storage needed. You heard it, 100 kilowatt hours, according to Jack, and 30 kilowatts of power throughput. I mean, Cliff argued with me, and honestly, I couldn't remember why Jack had asserted that we needed so much storage. It's really hard for us to see why that kind of system would ever be needed. It's way overkill for current home electrical requirements. But even on this podcast, I keep pointing out that once we get a second electric car, we're going to need to really up our generation in storage. I mean, what we have is, going to be small potatoes and woefully inadequate in the next 10 years, and certainly pitiful beyond that. It's hard to see that today, but in the last earnings call, Elon mentioned that electricity consumption is probably going to double, since we're going to use it now for transportation and probably to heat our homes. He says that this is a prosperous future for both Tesla and for utilities. I mean, that presumes that utilities make the required investments, and I don't know, that's a significant presumption. If you and I, as consumers, are going to be independent, then, I mean, it's just clear we're going to need tons of electrical generation on our roofs via solar. We're going to need tons of storage, and we're going to need tons of power throughput. This is inevitable. And, it's sometimes hard to hear, these kinds of things from these boffin types. They aren't always pleasant to look at or pleasant to listen to, but these guys, they've devoted their lives to improving the prospects for humanity. It's worth considering their perspective and supporting their efforts. I'm trying to help in a small way by echoing their ideas and investing in their projects. And, it's a bit of Galileo Russell's ethos from Hyperchange. Invest in the future you believe in. Invest your time, invest your money. And all of you, you're investing your time and potentially your money into this future. I mean, some of this future is now, and I gotta say, it's pretty great. And scene. That's episode 16 of the Tesla Power Podcast, the unofficial Tesla Energy Community. I'm Aaron Brady. My referral code is ts.la/Aaron62310. Go save a few bucks. Go get some free supercharging. I love that you're still here. Let's do it again on the next video.